11 years. That's how long Abby and I had been married. 11 years of road trips, lazy Sunday mornings, inside jokes that no one else would understand. If someone had asked me to define what stable looked like, I would have pointed at us without hesitation. We were the couple that made it. Or at least, that's what I thought. It's strange, the way things unravel. It doesn't happen all at once. It's not a thunderclap or a blown tire. It's more like a hairline fracture, barely visible at first, but slowly widening until everything just splits. I think I saw the first crack on a Wednesday afternoon tucked into the inside pocket of a navy blazer. I was working from home that day, one of the perks of my job at the architecture firm. Abby, on the other hand, had gone into the city for what she said was a client lunch. She did marketing consulting, corporate rebranding mostly, and had always kept a certain air of mystery around her client list. NDAs, she claimed. I'd never really pressed. Trust was the unspoken foundation of our marriage, or so I believed. She got back around 5, kissed me on the cheek, and headed upstairs to shower. I was about to throw a load of laundry in when I noticed her blazer lying across the back of the couch, not hung up like usual. A little corner of something white was peeking out of the inside pocket, barely noticeable. I almost ignored it. Almost. But something, call it instinct or curiosity or just the fact that the last few weeks had felt a little off, made me reach for it. It was a standard business card. Matte finish, minimalistic design, the kind you'd expect from a law office or finance firm. There was a name printed at the top, Ryan Caldwell, followed by a generic job title, strategic partnerships, whatever that meant. But it wasn't the front that mattered. It was the back. On it, in neat handwriting, were 7 words that hit me like a gut punch. Thanks for the night. R. I just stood there, holding it between my fingers as the words settled over me like a fog. Thanks for the night. What kind of client writes that? What kind of client signs it with just an initial? I felt my breath catch in my throat. My first instinct wasn't rage. It was confusion, disbelief. I read it again, just to make sure I wasn't misinterpreting. Nope. It was clear as day. I put the card back exactly where I found it and tossed the blazer over the armrest like I hadn't seen anything. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe there was an explanation. A joke, a weird inside thing I didn't understand. Maybe it really was from some eccentric client who thought leaving cryptic notes was quirky and charming. Maybe. Abby came downstairs not long after, hair still damp, wrapped in her usual bathrobe. She looked relaxed. Normal. She poured herself a glass of wine, then joined me on the couch like everything was business as usual. I waited until the second glass before I asked. Hey, I said casually, as if I wasn't already rehearsing the conversation in my head. I saw a business card in your blazer. It had a note on the back, something about thanks for the night? Who's R? For a split second, so quick you could miss it, her eyes widened. Just a flicker. But then she smiled, leaned back, and gave this little amused shrug. Oh, that? Yeah, one of the clients. Ryan something. He's harmless. Kind of weird, honestly. That's just his sense of humor. I nodded slowly. Weird how? She rolled her eyes and sipped her wine. You know the type. Tries too hard to be charming. Always flirting in a ha-ha just kidding kind of way. He left that after the meeting. I didn't even notice until I got home. The way she said it. I don't know. There was a tone, a texture to her voice. Too breezy, too prepackaged. Like she'd said it before, rehearsed it in her head just in case I asked. You didn't think to mention it? I asked. She raised an eyebrow. It wasn't important. Are we really going to make a thing out of a business card? That's when I dropped it. I smiled and said something like, no, I was just curious, and we moved on. But internally? I wasn't moving on. Not even close. That night, I couldn't sleep. And that in itself was new. Abby fell asleep quickly like she always did. I watched her chest rise and fall, steady and calm, as if nothing was out of place in her world. And maybe that was the most unsettling part, how calm she seemed. Unbothered. Unshaken. I stared at the ceiling, going over every little detail in my head. The way she had smirked when she brushed it off. The dismissiveness in her tone. The too easy explanation. I thought back to the last few weeks. Had she been different? Maybe a little. She'd been working later, saying she had deadlines and strategy sessions with new clients. She'd been dressing up more, wearing perfume even on days she was supposedly working from home. And there was the new gym membership she'd signed up for out of the blue. Gotta keep the stress off, she'd said. But she'd never been a gym person. All of it had seemed like nothing individually. Just little changes. People change, right? But now, the card made them all feel like puzzle pieces I hadn't realized were part of a larger picture. I looked over at her again, curled up under the comforter like nothing in the world could touch her. And for the first time in our marriage, I felt like I was lying next to a stranger. The clock on my nightstand said 1:47 a.m. My heart wouldn't slow down. My mind wouldn't stop replaying that moment, her smirk, her answer, her shrug. I'd never caught her in a lie before, but I had the distinct feeling I just had. And here's the part that really rattled me. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to accept the story, to chalk it up to a harmless misunderstanding. I wanted to be the trusting husband. But there was something in my gut, something deeper than logic or reason, telling me that the truth was standing right in front of me, and I was too afraid to see it. I thought about waking her up, about asking again, pressing for more. But what would I say? I don't believe you? Based on what gut feeling? A weird look? No. I needed more. Something concrete. So I stayed silent. I stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. And when Abby rolled over in the morning and kissed me on the cheek like everything was fine, I kissed her back. But deep down I knew. Something had changed. And things were never going to be the same. They say hindsight is 20/20ths, and I used to think that was just a cliché. Something people said to make themselves feel better about missing the obvious. But after that night, after the business card and Abby's nonchalant excuse, I started seeing everything differently. Not just that day, but the days, weeks, months leading up to it. All the little things I had brushed off, all the tiny oddities I chalked up to stress or coincidence, they started playing back in my head like a highlight reel I never asked to watch. The first thing that jumped out at me was the running. Abby had never been much of a runner. She was one of those people who liked the idea of it more than the act. She owned the gear, leggings, earbuds, fancy shoes, but it mostly gathered dust in the closet. Then, about 2 months ago, she started going out for runs at night. Not early evening jogs, not casual walks, actual nighttime runs. It helps me unwind, she said. Clears my head after staring at spreadsheets all day. At first, I admired it. I figured she'd found a healthy coping mechanism, especially after how burnt out she'd been acting. But over time, something felt off. Who goes running at 10 p.m.? And why did she always leave her phone at home? I asked her once, lightheartedly, why she didn't use her running app anymore, the one that used to track her miles and route. She smiled and said it was K*ling my battery, and I didn't press. I trusted her. Or I tried to. Then there was the lingerie. I remember folding laundry one weekend and coming across a lacy red set I'd never seen before. Not the kind of thing she wore for comfort. The tags were still attached. My stomach did a slow turn. I held them up when she walked in, half smirking like I was trying to make a joke of it. New surprise for me? She glanced over, barely missing a beat. Client gift from a brand rep, she said, waving her hand dismissively. You know, those influencer perks. Then she kissed my cheek and walked off like I hadn't just found something that had no business being in our house. A gift. That's what she said. And I, like a fool, let it go. I started remembering all the other changes too. Subtle things, but stacked together they started to feel loud. Her laptop, which used to be basically communal, suddenly had a password. Her calendar, which we used to sync, was too cluttered now, and she switched to a private one. And the biggest shift of all was in how she reacted to my touch. A few weeks before the card incident, I'd walked into the kitchen while she was chopping vegetables and slipped my arms around her from behind. A simple hug. A moment of affection. But the way she flinched, it was like I'd startled a stranger. She laughed it off, said she was in work mode and hadn't heard me coming. But I felt it. The way her body tensed. Like she didn't want me touching her. And still. I tried not to jump to conclusions. I tried to be the rational husband, the one who didn't accuse without proof, the one who gave his wife the benefit of the doubt. That's what we're supposed to do, right? Trust first, question later. But the longer I replayed these moments, the harder it became to ignore the growing knot in my stomach. There were the late-night texts, too. She used to leave her phone out on the nightstand while she slept. Lately, it came to bed face down and on silent. Once, while she was in the shower, I saw it light up. No name, just a number. And the preview read, "Last night was amazing. Same time tomorrow." My pulse jumped, and before I could even think, I picked it up. But the message was gone. Opened. Cleared. Like it never existed. She'd seen it, deleted it, and locked the screen before I could catch the sender. When she came out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around her, she acted like nothing happened. That moment stuck with me like a splinter. The next night, I stayed up after she went to bed. I said I was watching the end of a game, but I wasn't really watching anything. I just sat on the couch in the dark, listening. Around 10:30, I heard the front door open quietly. Not slammed. Not closed with the weight of someone returning home. Just softly clicked shut. I waited, counted to 60, then walked over and turned the lock. I didn't say anything when she came back in half an hour later, breathing a little heavier than usual, hair damp like she just showered somewhere else. I'm not proud of this next part, but I think it matters. I started checking our bank statements. We'd always had joint accounts. Abby wasn't reckless with money, and we had no reason to hide spending from each other. But in the last month or so, I noticed something new. A string of charges from rideshare apps, restaurants I'd never been to, and this one stung, a boutique hotel. The kind of place with mood lighting and curated playlists and 0 kids in sight. The receipt was vague. Room service. No room number. No duration. Just the charge. When I asked her about it, she shrugged and said she had to meet a client who was passing through town and didn't want to meet in a noisy cafe. Said she billed it to the client's account and would be reimbursed. The words came out so smoothly, it was almost convincing. Almost. That night, I couldn't look at her the same. She was brushing her hair at the bathroom mirror, humming a song, and I just stood in the doorway staring at her. Not because she looked different, but because she didn't. She looked like the woman I married, the same smile, the same hair, the same everything. But she wasn't her. Not anymore. I started wondering how long it had been going on. How far back the lies stretched. Was it weeks? Months? A year? And then came the most bitter part of it all. The self-doubt. I started turning the lens inward. Was I neglectful? Had I missed something? Was I too focused on work, on routines, on keeping things comfortable that I forgot to keep them meaningful? Was I somehow responsible for her drifting? I remembered the last time she reached for my hand in public. It had been months. At the grocery store, she used to hook her pinky around mine while we walked. I hadn't noticed when that stopped. I remembered the last time we had a real conversation over dinner, one that didn't revolve around work, errands, or passive small talk. It had been a while. It's funny how your mind *P******************************************************************************************************cnizes memory when you're hurting. Every silence becomes suspect. Every smile seems rehearsed. Every "I love you" sounds like a quote from a play you didn't know you were watching. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. I wasn't ready to hear the advice I knew I'd get. Talk to her. Don't assume. Maybe it's all a misunderstanding. I wasn't ready for that because deep down I didn't believe it was a misunderstanding anymore. It was something else. Something worse. And I needed to know what it was. 3 days. That's how long it took me to go from suspicious to certain. After the business card, the silence, the flinching touches, the new routines that didn't include me, it was like the walls were closing in. I felt like I was living with a stranger. Every time Abby smiled, every time she told me she loved me, it sounded like a foreign language spoken through perfect teeth. I couldn't keep doing the guessing game. So I made a plan. It was Saturday when she told me she had a fitness class at the new gym she joined. "They're doing infrared sauna now," she said, like that was supposed to mean something to me. "It's detoxing. You should try it sometime." "Maybe," I said, playing along, sipping my coffee. I already knew I wouldn't be trying anything. I wasn't even staying home. That morning, after she left in a cloud of eucalyptus spray and expensive perfume, I pulled out my phone and called the gym. Not from my number, obviously. I used a burner app I'd downloaded the night before. "Hi, I'm in town for a few days and looking for a gym to use," I said, keeping my voice calm. "Do you guys offer day passes?" The girl on the phone was friendly and a little too chipper for my mood. "We do. You can book one online or just come in. First day is $25. Perfect." An hour later, I was standing in the lobby of the sleekest gym I'd ever been in. Floor-to-ceiling windows, juice bar in the corner, everyone wearing clothes more expensive than my best button-up. I handed over my ID and the fake name I'd rehearsed in the car. Brandon. The front desk staff barely looked at me as they printed out a temporary pass and waved me through. I didn't go to the weights, didn't bother with a locker. I just walked slowly through the gym, scanning every face like a detective in a movie I never wanted to be in. For a few minutes, I thought maybe I was wrong. Maybe she really was working out. Maybe this whole thing was some paranoid episode cooked up in my own mind. Then I saw her. She was coming out of the sauna, wrapped in a white towel, laughing. With him, Ryan, the man from the card. The name behind the thanks for the night. I didn't need to hear their conversation to know what it was. I could see it in their body language, in the way he leaned in close when he spoke, in the way she tilted her head back when she laughed, wide open, no restraint, like she was high on his attention. He had his hand on the small of her back, and when they reached the seating area just outside the sauna, he kissed her neck. Not her cheek, not her forehead, her neck. She smiled. She held his hand. She didn't pull away. And me? I just stood there, half hidden behind a column near the water fountain, frozen like someone had taken the remote and hit pause on my entire life. My heart was beating so loud I could hear it in my ears, drowning out the sounds of clanking weights and fake techno music. I felt my stomach tighten, my breath shallow, my fists clenched so hard my nails dug into my palms. But I didn't move. I didn't scream or storm over or cause a scene. Instead, I took out my phone and snapped a picture. One, just one, of him leaning in and her hand in his. Proof. Then I turned around and walked straight out of the gym, not even bothering to return the pass. I didn't care if they charged me double. Let them. When I got back in my car, I didn't cry. I didn't hit the steering wheel. I didn't even breathe for a second. I just sat there, staring at the picture on my phone. Her hair still damp, the towel clinging to her like a lover, and Ryan with his smug little half-smile, like he knew he was getting away with something. Because he was. I'd known something was wrong for weeks, but this was confirmation in HD. The strange, the way pain can feel so physical. My chest actually hurt, like something had been torn from it. I tried to blink it away, but everything was blurry. My hands trembled. I felt like I was outside my own body, watching some other man fall apart in the driver's seat of a silver Honda. I didn't go home right away. I drove aimlessly for a while, through neighborhoods we used to walk through on fall evenings, past the bakery where we got our wedding cake, even stopped for a few minutes outside the hotel where we spent our anniversary last year. That one hit hardest. We'd laughed there. We'd made promises there. And somewhere between then and now, she'd started keeping secrets instead. By the time I got home, she was already back, showered, hair up in a towel. She looked fresh, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just torn through the last shred of trust one had left. "Hey," she said from the hallway, not even looking up from her phone. "That sauna was amazing. You really should come next time." I stared at her for a moment, wondering how it was even possible to lie so easily. "Maybe," I said quietly. "Yeah, maybe." That night I didn't eat much. She made pasta, her go-to for a lazy Saturday, and we sat on opposite ends of the couch, watching a movie we weren't really paying attention to. I kept thinking about how close I'd come to never knowing. How easily she'd buried the truth under smiles and soft kisses and half-honest stories about late meetings and detox routines. I watched her watching the screen, eyes flickering in the glow of the TV, and wondered how many times she'd sat next to me while thinking of him. How many times she'd kissed me goodnight while texting him under the covers. How many lies I'd swallowed just to keep the peace. And I realized something terrifying. I didn't know who she was anymore. The woman beside me wasn't the Abby I'd married. That Abby made me playlists when I had long drives. She left me little notes in my lunchbox when I had back-to-back meetings. She cried when we put our dog down. She believed in us. This Abby? She was cold, mechanical, practiced, like she'd been training for this role and now, finally, she'd mastered it. I didn't sleep that night. Again. I just laid there, staring at the ceiling while she snored softly beside me. And for the first time, I didn't just feel hurt. I felt empty, hollowed out, like the man I was, the husband, the partner, the friend, had been slowly erased, replaced by a placeholder. Someone she could lie to with a straight face. Someone she could cheat on and still ask to fix the garbage disposal or book dinner reservations or rub her feet when she was tired. I wasn't a husband anymore. I was an obstacle. And the worst part? She didn't even seem to notice. The next morning, I woke up before her. I watched the sun come through the blinds, lighting up the room we'd painted together just a few years earlier. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone in my hand, staring at that photo one more time. That kiss, that smile, that betrayal. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew one thing for sure. Whatever came next, it wouldn't include pretending anymore. I didn't plan the confrontation. Not really. I didn't write a speech or rehearse what I'd say in the mirror. But I knew it was coming. After that photo, after seeing her with him, wrapped in steam and silence and secrets, I couldn't unsee it, couldn't go back. The man I'd been, accommodating, trusting, blind, was gone. What replaced him wasn't angry, not even bitter, just done. It was Sunday night, and Abby had said she was going to meet a friend from her marketing group for coffee. I nodded, smiled even, watched her walk out the door like everything was normal, like she hadn't been with another man's lips on her neck less than 48 hours ago. The moment she left, I stood up, walked to the hallway, and shut off every light. Not dramatically, just deliberately. Then I sat in the dark, phone in hand, that one photo still open on the screen. My mind kept circling one question. How long had she practiced this lie? How many times had she looked me in the eye and said she loved me, knowing she had his number memorized? How many nights did she fake a headache or claim she was just tired, when really she was saving her affection for someone else? By the time I heard her key turn in the lock, something in me had gone completely quiet. The door opened slowly. Light spilled in from the porch. She stepped inside, humming softly, not even noticing the darkness. "Michael?" she called out, confused. I said nothing. When she walked into the living room, she jumped, startled by the silhouette of me, sitting silently in the corner, back straight, phone in hand, like I was carved from the very darkness she stepped into. She blinked. "Jesus, you scared me," she said with a shaky laugh. "Why are you sitting here in the dark?" I held out the phone without saying a word. Her eyes dropped to the screen. The smile faded, gone in an instant. She stared at the image, her hand in his, the corner of her towel visible, his lips too close to her skin. Her mouth opened slightly, then closed again. I saw it happen in real time, her confidence slipping, her posture stiffening, 1,000 rehearsed excuses scrambling through her brain, looking for the least humiliating one. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, she said just 2 words. "I'm confused." Not "I'm sorry." Not "let me explain." Just that. "I'm confused." I stared at her for a long moment. Then I stood up. My legs felt strange, heavy, like I hadn't used them in days. I walked past her, wordless, into our bedroom. The room we'd painted soft gray together. The room that had housed 10 Christmas mornings and countless whispered secrets. I opened the closet, pulled out my duffel bag, and I started packing. I wasn't frantic. I wasn't throwing things. I just moved with purpose: shirts, jeans, toothbrush, charger. The essentials. Not because I didn't want the rest, but because I didn't want any of it near her anymore. Behind me, I could hear her footsteps in the hallway. Hesitant. Slow. She stood at the doorway and said my name like it was a plea. "Michael, wait. Please. Let's talk." I zipped the bag and slung it over my shoulder. "No," I said. "We've already said too much in silence." I walked past her again, through the house we'd built, past the photo frames I couldn't bear to look at, and stepped out into the cold night. I didn't slam the door. I didn't turn back. I just walked, and I didn't stop until I hit the road out of town. I drove through the night, windows down, cold air slicing through the silence. No music, no GPS, just the hum of the engine and the kind of quiet that feels like an open wound. Around 3 a.m., I pulled into a dusty roadside motel in Colorado. The kind of place that didn't ask questions and smelled like old carpet and cigarette memories. I paid cash. The clerk barely looked up from his crossword. That felt like a gift. Room 204. 1 lamp, 1 bed, 1 bathroom with cracked tile and a mirror that reflected a man I barely recognized. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the floor until the sun began to rise. I don't remember falling asleep, But I must have drifted off at some point because the next thing I heard was knocking. 3 soft taps. I froze. Not because I was scared, but because deep down I already knew who it was. I opened the door and there she was. Abby. No makeup. Red-rimmed eyes. Hair pulled back like she hadn't even looked in the mirror. She was still wearing the hoodie she used to steal from my side of the closet. The one I hadn't packed. The one that still smelled like me. "Hi," she whispered. Like she wasn't sure she had the right to speak. I didn't say anything. Just stared at her. Waiting. She bit her lip, fighting whatever storm was swirling inside her. "I didn't know where else to go," she said finally. "I couldn't sleep. I needed to see you." "You found me," I said flatly. She stepped inside without waiting for permission and sat on the bed like it was still hers. Like this room, this escape wasn't sacred. Her presence felt like graffiti on a clean wall. She looked around the room, then at me, and I saw it, the breaking. "I messed up," she said, tears pooling in her eyes. "I know I did. I know I broke everything." I said nothing. "I didn't mean to," she added, as if intention mattered now. "It started small, just texting. Then I was venting. Then he was there." I still said nothing. "You stopped seeing me," she said, more defensively now. "You used to look at me like I was your whole world. And then one day you didn't. That made me blink." 100 things I could have said. 100 moments I could have reminded her of. The breakfasts I cooked. The notes I left. The way I always asked about her day, even when mine had been a disaster. But I didn't defend myself. I just looked at her and said, "So you found someone else to look at you like that?" Silence. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I don't know who I am without you," she whispered. And that, finally, broke me, because I used to feel the same way. But not anymore. Now I knew exactly who I was. Someone who didn't deserve this. I stood, grabbed my keys, and walked toward the door. "Michael," she said, standing too. "Please, don't leave me here." I turned to her, hand on the knob, looked her dead in the eye. "You already left," I said quietly. "The moment you let him touch you and didn't pull away." And then I walked out into the morning. The sun was rising, and for the first time in weeks, the light didn't burn. I drove home 2 days after Ryan's visit. Not because I missed Abby, but because I needed to walk into that house on my own terms. The silence that greeted me was thick, almost theatrical. Our wedding photo still hung by the entryway. I didn't even glance at it. Abby opened the door to the bedroom when she heard me. She looked tired, smaller somehow, like she'd shrunk under the weight of her own choices. I didn't yell, didn't ask for apologies. I just pulled the papers from my bag and set them on the kitchen table. Divorce papers, already signed. She stared at them, blinking slowly, as if they might disappear if she didn't look directly at them. "You're serious," she said finally. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She reached for my hand, as if that was still her right. "We can work through this. We've been through worse, haven't we?" I gently pulled my hand away. "No," I said. "We haven't." She followed me as I walked toward the door again. I could feel her trying to conjure something that would stop me. A memory, a promise, a plea. But there was nothing left in her eyes that could reach me. That's when I knew. She couldn't hurt me anymore. And that might have been the saddest part. I walked out without slamming the door. No grand exit. No final insult. Just a man finally done pretending he was okay with being broken. A week later, Abby asked for one last meeting. I almost said no. But part of me wanted closure, the clean kind, not the shattered kind. We met at the little cafe downtown where we used to go on lazy Sundays. She looked like the version of her I'd tried to hold on to. Soft sweater. No makeup. Eyes rimmed in red. "I still love you," she said, voice cracking. "And I know I destroyed everything. But I need you to understand. It wasn't about him. It was about feeling seen." I looked at her for a long time. Not angry. Just removed. "You stayed silent for a month," I said, "while I lay in that motel dying of loneliness. And now you want me to save what you destroyed." She wiped her eyes. "I don't expect you to fix it. I just I didn't want our story to end like this. I stood up, gently pushing my chair back. Our story ended the night you let someone else write over me. She opened her mouth to say something, but I didn't wait. I stepped into the cool air and walked away. Not bitter, not broken, just free. Free to start the story that comes after betrayal, the one where I fin.